you see so many parallels with what's happening here, Demi.
Here in the UK.
In the UK. And, you know, I mean, one side of it is the left going to bed with the Islamists. The other side of it was the incompetence of the establishment at the time in Iran, which, again, is what we're seeing here. I remember talking to one of the generals after the revolution, and he was telling me that the entire revolution was organized by a team of like 300 ringleaders. A lot of them were Palestinians who had infiltrated into Iran, and if they were arrested, the whole thing would have just, stopped. And I said, well, why didn't you arrest them? And he said, well, we had to wait for an order from the top. We couldn't just use our own initiative, And then when I see the incompetence of the establishment here to confront this rise of Islamism, it just reminds me of the parallels with Iran is just like hair raising. And, saving this country is now my priority. Here, saving Britain is now my concern, because it's frightening what I see. It's as if what happened in Iran 45 years ago is just catching up with me again. I can't believe it's happening. And I told my project manager that I'm worried about the rise of Islamism. And he said to me, oh, that would never happen here. And okay. I remember the very first time I heard Khomeini's name in Iran, and I didn't know who he was. And I asked people, who is it? And when they told me who he was and what he wanted to do, I said, oh, that will never happen here. People say it will never happen here. If you say that, you're allowing it to happen here.
Yeah. Granniopteryx, she knows the truth. She's linking every link.
All right, there we are. We are live, Potkin. How nice to see you. And we've both got books behind us. We're both in the same library.
Okay.
Should I just start with an intro?
If you want, but let me just say that it really is a pleasure to be on your show, on your channel. I've been a fan of you ever since I found out you mentioned my name in one of your videos.
I like good voices, Potkin.
Same here, and I think you're a good voice as well. What do I call you?
You can call me Demi.
Demi, okay.
Yeah, I suppose so. The fact is, though, that my son refers to me as Granny as well, just because I am a grandma, Okay, but enough about me. This is about you. So first of all, I'm going to introduce you to my millions of audience here, and some of you might be familiar with Potkin Azamir. Am I pronouncing your name properly?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, you are. Yes.
As those of you who don't know about him, he came to these shores from Iran in 1980. Just a few months.
In 1976.
76.
Yeah, before the revolution. I went to a boarding school.
Oh, you were. Oh, yeah. Then I got that wrong. Right. So you were already out of this place before Khomeini. Was your family stuck there in Iran and you were over here?
Yes. Yeah, I was at a boarding school, and then that's when the revolution happened. I was here.
Oh, I see. And they said, don't come back.
Well, I did go back for holidays on one occasion after the revolution. But then it sort of coincided with what they called cultural revolution, where they closed down the universities and sacked all the students and lecturers, and the universities were closed down for 2 years so they could rewrite the syllabus for their Islamic version of what should be taught in the universities. And I thought that was it. I knew that I couldn't live there.
How old were you then?
I was 16.
Right.
So and then I went to university, and then I got married, and I just stayed here and didn't go back.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a case of me escaping from there. I was already here.
Ah, okay. Well, you were sensible enough not to try to go back.
Yeah, do you know? On one occasion I was taking my my second boy. It was 7 at the time, to school, and he was holding my hand, and all of a sudden he said to me, "Daddy, when the baddies got in power in Iran, why didn't you fight them?" I thought, what sort of question is this? On the way to school, from a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And I sort of said, well, because they were too strong. We didn't think we can win. And he goes, but if all the people got united, if they all got together, then they'd be strong enough to beat them, wouldn't they? I said, well, yeah, but they didn't, because, a lot of them were tricked, they were, coerced into thinking that something good's going to come out of this. And I was just like, it was getting into a really heavy conversation with a 7-year-old taking him to school. So
do you know, do you know that poster that was, it was extremely unpopular, actually. It was during the First World War. It showed a little girl sitting on her father's lap. And there's a little boy playing with a toy tank or something on the floor. And the father is looking very ashamed of himself. And the little girl is saying, "What did you do during the war, Daddy?"
Mm-hmm.
And it was very unpopular because a lot of people thought that was an extremely unfair thing to say, or to shame people in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it is something that you always ponder about, but
no, there was no way that you'd have ended up in some cellar somewhere. You were quite right. Yeah. I think you're doing a lot better here, frankly, myself.
That's how I've been trying to comfort myself. Yeah, that I've been more used here than if I stayed back there.
Yeah, I mean, this is something. There's a bit of a problem in Iran because I think the Israelis thought that the Iranians would all sort of rise up. But it's not possible. The levers of power are too strongly held by the Republican Guard, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if the Israelis wanted to do a regime change in Iran. I think they would have been happy if it happened. Their main aim and goal was something else. They wanted to reduce Iran's immediate threats in terms of like the nuclear bomb and the proxy groups and the missiles and everything. But if it led to a regime change, then it would have been a bonus and they would have been happy. But I've written an article about this, actually. The problem is that the Iranian opposition, the expat opposition, doesn't have a network underground.
No.
I mean, if you look at the 1979 revolution in Iran, all the mosques were Khomeini's network. I mean, you had a mosque everywhere. Unfortunately, the Shah had built a lot of mosques because he thought the immediate threat is from the communists. So he sort of like promoted the religious side of the Iranians in some way. I mean, not in an extremist way, but in a more spiritual way. But what it meant was that, every town, every village had a mosque, and every mosque needed a minimum of 3 people to run. And they became Khomeini's network. Yeah. And then 2 months before the revolution, these revolutionary committees had started, which were based in mosques, and they were running the day-to-day of, traffic and, law and order and that sort of thing in Iran. So he had the physical network underground. So if he said, like, to people to come on the street, that network was physically underground, organizing it. But the expat opposition, they've just been too busy on Twitter and social media and spending a lot of money on these expensive conferences, which only serve to divide them anymore. And I think the Israelis have given up with the Iranian opposition as well. The problem is this lack of alternative. I mean, if you were living in Iran, you think, okay, I'll go on the street, we go and capture a local police station. What's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's no roadmap. And the thing is, but one shouldn't be despondent because, look, a revolution is just one way of changing the regime. The Soviet Union wasn't changed by people coming out protesting on the streets and a revolution. It just collapsed. The system just couldn't give an answer.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's a bit unrealistic to think that you can change the regime through a revolution, because these people, they've come to power through a revolution. They know the A to Z of the revolution better than anyone else. I mean, it's like with my last experience in Iran. When they were closing down the universities, I went along with my friends. We thought like we're going to protect the universities. But the people that we had to face, I mean, they were like, outright hoodlums. We were no physical match for them.
Yeah.
at best, we might have been some tough kids at school or something. You know, these people, they've come to power through a revolution. They know the A to Z of the revolution better than you and me, and they know how to stop it as well. I mean, whenever there is an uprising, and we've had many uprisings in Iran, you know, nationwide uprisings in the last 20 years alone. But I mean, the crackdown is very brutal and very systematic and very organized and very targeted. They also divide. They know how to divide the opposition. They know how to discredit the opposition, and they know how to stop any funding to the opposition as well. So, in a way, street violence and revolution is their playing field.
Yeah.
Demi. Yeah.
Understood.
What we've got to find is a playing ground which isn't their playing grounds.
Yeah.
And I think the Achilles heel of the regime is the economy, just like the Soviet Union. The system is just it can't function. It's collapsing, and it will collapse. When it's going to collapse, I don't know. I can't make a prediction on that. But if it doesn't change, it's going to collapse. Simple as that.
I do know they're running out of water supplies.
Absolutely, yeah, and this is completely mismanagement. It's nothing to do with climate change and you know all that sort of thing. You know, if you look at the satellite pictures, for example, there's a lake in northwest Iran which I have very fond memories of it, and then there's a smaller lake in just a little bit further in Turkey. The one in Iran is just completely gone, is dry. The one in Turkey, which is not that far, is still there. It is completely mismanagement by people that shouldn't be ruling the country. And you know, if you can't supply people with water and electricity, you know, you can't carry on as a government. It's a collapse.
The irony is that there've been a few terrible floods as well, which they couldn't control. That has to do with management of the riverbanks, hasn't it?
It's all sorts of management. And in fact, the province where my family come from in Iran by the Caspian Sea, I mean, they've actually seen more rainfall than before. The problem is the lack of quality water that's drinkable. Because they've messed this up so much. Yeah. It's not even a water shortage as such in that province. They've had more rainfall. But it's just heartbreaking how they've destroyed a beautiful country. And when you look back, you see so many parallels with what's happening here, Demi.
Here in the UK.
In the UK. And, you know, I mean, one side of it is the left going to bed with the Islamists, which I think other people have covered and talked about, and we can see that here as well.
They just don't learn, do they?
Yeah, and the other side of it was the incompetence of the establishment at the time in Iran, which, again, is what we're seeing here.
Oh, God.
I mean, the Shah was seriously ill. Obviously, you know, we didn't know about it. It was kept a secret. But he was really ill, and he couldn't make decisions. And the system was such that everything, you know, the orders came from the top. And if he was ill, he couldn't make a decision, then no one else could decide. No one else could have the initiative to do it. I remember talking to one of the generals after the revolution, and he was telling me that the entire revolution was organized by a team of like 300 ringleaders. A lot of them were Palestinians who had infiltrated into Iran, and if they were arrested, the whole thing would have just, stopped. And I said, well, why didn't you arrest them? And he said, well, we had to wait for an order from the top. We couldn't just use our own initiative, And then when I see the incompetence of the establishment here to confront this rise of Islamism, it just reminds me of the parallels with Iran is just like hair raising. And this is why, saving this country is now my priority. I've sort of more or less I think I've done what I could do for Iran, and I think the system will collapse eventually, and there doesn't need to have a lot of input from me. But here, saving Britain is now my concern, because it's frightening what I see. How it's as if what happened in Iran 45 years ago is just catching up with me again. I can't believe it's happening.
Oh God. Oh, that is that is depressing, Potkin. I hadn't thought of it like that, but you're... Yeah. Oh, God.
And I mean, at some point, I want to talk about my visit to Israel as well.
Oh, well, do you want to?
September,
Well,
yeah.
look, okay. So we've been talking about our regime here, which is incompetent and looks like it's falling apart. And now you want, perhaps we can inject some hope here, talking about a regime that at least seems to know what it's doing, mostly. So, yeah, tell me about Israel.
I think you're referring to Israel.
Yeah, yes, I definitely am.
Well, actually, earlier this month, I had a chance to go to Israel. I went with a delegation of 15 journalists. There was 5 from UK, including me, and there were some from Spain and some from Italy, Czech Republic, Portugal. 15 altogether.
Were you invited by the Israeli government, or did you
No,
organise
it
this
wasn't.
yourself?
No, it wasn't anything to do with the Israeli government. It was a organization called Europe Israel Press Association.
Okay, all right.
And the idea was, they invite us to Israel, so that's, we see the other, we see the thing from close by.
Yeah.
And it was quite a packed program. I mean, we were sort of like leaving the hotel 7:30 a.m. in the morning, coming back at night. And interestingly, Demi, the first visit was to the Nir Oz kibbutz, where a quarter of the people in that kibbutz were either killed or kidnapped. And it's right by the Gaza border. Now, just for your viewers, if they don't know what a kibbutz is, so kibbutz is this sort of like collective farm. It's very socialistic. The idea is all based on socialism, where people sort of like, they work together, they eat together. There's no hierarchy. Everyone's equal. No one owns any private property. Everything is communal. So you have like a carpool, for example, and you use it when you have to, etc. And it's probably the only form of successful socialism I know. And I think the reason for that is because it's all voluntary. So the people that join a kibbutz do so not because they're forced to, but because they like that sort of lifestyle and they can go on with it. And if they want to leave, they can leave. There's no one's forced to stay there. And really, that's how Israel was built, with these kibbutzes. Anyways, this Nir Oz kibbutz, which was by the Gaza border, we were greeted by this lady called Irit Lahav, who's one of the few residents there who come back. She managed to survive with her daughter because she managed to lock the safe shelter door, and Hamas couldn't get in there. But interestingly, what was, I don't want to go about the brutality of what happened there. I mean, you could still smell death. It was horrible. Hearing the stories, how the families were kidnapped, how they were killed, and what happened to them, and that. But that side of the story has probably been told, right? And I don't want to repeat it. What was interesting, though, Demi, was the people in that kibbutz were the left-wing liberal Jews. They were the peace activists.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
They were there because they wanted to become friends with the Gazans. They wanted to find a way of coexistence and living together. I mean, Irit, she was always taking patients, the Gazans, to Israeli hospitals to be medically treated. They were providing them with work opportunities. And I mean, Irit herself, I mean, she was born a Jew, but when we went to her house, which she was rebuilding, I noticed all these like Buddhist things. I said, "Are you a Buddhist?" She goes, "Yes, I'm born a Jew, but I'm a practicing Buddhist." And she'd met Dalai Lama and all that. I mean, this lady was as left wing and liberal as they come, and she couldn't understand why the left in the West are not standing by them, and they're standing by the people who committed that atrocity. And in fact, she said to me, she said, "Look, what happened to us happened on 7th of October. The protests in the West, they started on the 8th of October.
Yeah.
Israel didn't attack Gaza 3 weeks after 7th of October. And the same thing I remember in Iran. In 1988, there was a massacre of political prisoners, mostly left-wing prisoners. There was not a single protest by their left-wing comrades in the West. And when
That's interesting. Why?
when the few people that I talked to, they were saying that, oh, the Iranian regime is fighting Western imperialism, and this is not our priority. You know, the greater goal is to fight Western imperialism. So they thought it was more to their tune if they supported the Islamic regime in Iran, the fascist Islamic regime in Iran, than to stand up by their own comrades who were being massacred. And I'm talking about 16-year-old teenagers were summarily executed. Pregnant women were summarily executed. This went on over 2 months. And basically what it was the end of the Iran-Iraq war. And the regime was scared that a lot of these people that were in prison, their prison sentences was ending, and they were going to come out, and there's going to be a lot of dissatisfaction after the war because of all the shortcomings and everything, shortages. And these people will be able to organize some sort of, like, rebellion. So these kangaroo courts were set up with 3 clerics, and the prisoners were going behind these in front of these kangaroo courts, one after the other, and they were asked 2 questions. Do you believe in God? Are you prepared to renounce your organization? And if the answer to those 2 questions, or any of those questions, was no, they were, like, taken for execution. So, and this is the same thing. So these people, these victims of Hamas attack on October 7, they were mostly, peace activists. Another person who was kidnapped and killed in that Nir Oz kibbutz was a famous Israeli journalist and peace activist. He was 84 years old. Dedi Shitz was his name. He'd campaigned all his life for peace with Palestinians and Hamas, and he was kidnapped and he was killed. And when they took us to the commune, the dining hall, which was mostly burned still, I noticed there was a notice on the notice board. It was in Hebrew, so I couldn't read it, but I could see the date, 7th of October. And I asked her, what is that? And she said, oh, this was the poster we stuck there because we were calling for the kibbutzes to come out on a protest against Netanyahu government on that very day that they were attacked. And the heartwarming thing is, she was saying to me, she said, look, I don't hate the Gazans, I don't hate the Palestinians. I don't want any of them to be hurt, I don't want any of them to be killed, but I'm just disappointed. I don't understand how they could unleash that level of brutality against us who were trying to be friends with them. And I think this is the side of the story that isn't being reported in the West. And, every time I meet all these people going on these protests and all that, I want to tell them about this. And they don't even know what a kibbutz is. I've never known people going on protests to be so ignorant about the subject, Demi.
Mm-hmm. Well, Konstantin Kissin went round asking people. Did you see that video?
Yes. From which river to which sea?
What's from the river to sea? I don't know. Yeah. They just gave me the poster.
I've got a couple of on my YouTube channel where I'm talking to these protesters that have had over. I think one of them has got over 200,000 views, and another one similar. One of them is with this woman, and I'm asking her, what she knows about Hamas, and she just hasn't got a clue what the ideology of Hamas is. And another one, she was telling me she had a master's degree in religious studies from Edinburgh University with specialization in Arab-Israel conflict. And when I asked her, when was the last time Hamas held an election, she didn't know. I said, how can you not know? You've got all these qualifications from university, a very basic thing that no Palestinian under the age of 35 years old has ever voted in an election, because neither side, neither Fatah, neither the PLO nor Hamas have held an election since 2007. And the last time they held an election, they started killing each other. The two rival groups ended up killing each other.
Yeah.
So for 18 years, they haven't held an election. And somehow you think Hamas represents these people. And you don't see anything wrong with that. And you don't even know about it. And you're coming on a protest and you've got all these qualifications that you boast about. It's incredible. And I've written an article about this, the staggering line, the staggering ignorance of the pro-Palestine protesters. I've never known people.
Potkin, I want to stop you here. Will you send me the URL link to that, and I'll put that under the video?
Of course, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
go on.
I mean, me and you. I mean, I remember the Vietnam protesters. I remember the poll tax protesters, anti-apartheid protesters, which I used to take part in myself. Maybe, or council tax protesters. Maybe we didn't agree with these protesters and all that, but at least they knew their subject.
Mm-hmm.
At least they knew.
Okay, so right, there is an amazing ignorance about this, which surprises me as well. Surprised me as well. But I have to tell you that the attitude. I mean, when I went to Manchester University to study Islamic history, there were 4 people in my year, and one of those was forced to do it because she was taking an archaeology degree. So there's this apparently willful, this wish not to know. But I'd be very interested in any theories you might have about why people are taking up the cudgels over an issue they know next to nothing about.
I just think that, especially within the recent years, unfortunately, people in our educational establishments, they're not being educated, they're being indoctrinated. It's not education. It's not like them sort of like seeing both sides of things. And if you read something, I mean, this has always been my thing. If I read something, I want to read something opposite to that as well. And then make up my mind. I like to hear all sides of views. But you notice it. These protesters, they don't want to debate with you. They just shout at you.
They don't.
Label you. They want to label you. You can't have a debate with them.
Yep.
And if you don't hear the other side, you're not going to have a very educated opinion. You're going to be over opinionated.
But how did it start? Very little. How did it start? Any ideas?
To be honest with you, I always think I noticed a decline in what's happening in Britain ever since Theresa May became the Prime Minister. She turned the Conservative Party into even left of the, I would say, Blair Labour Party, and everything went downhill there. All the institutions they got they became a joke. The police became a joke. Everything got infiltrated. Everything got taken over by all this DEI sort of thing, and diversity nonsense and that. And I think the decline started from Theresa May. I think she's been the worst Prime Minister ever in British history. But the very first time I sensed danger was I'd gone to Speaker's Corner, and this was many, many years ago. I just bought a camcorder, right? And I went to Speaker's Corner because I thought there'd be some interesting topics to film. And I went with a friend of mine, and there was like a group of Islamists in the Speaker's Corner, and one of them was talking some nonsense, and I just like challenged him. And then he came off the stool, and suddenly I was surrounded by 50 people. And he said to me, either you take back what you just said, or I'm going to smash your head against those sharp railings behind you. And he was looking me right in the eye, and he absolutely meant it. And he said, I don't mind going to prison because I'll go to prison for my religion. And I'm looking around, I'm like 50 people surrounding me. Yeah. And I'm looking for my friend that I can't find him. And afterwards, I said to him, well, what happened to you? Where the hell were you? And he said, well, what can I do against 50 people? I said, well, you could have called the police. But at that point, I thought and I remember telling my project manager at the time, I'll tell you when it was year 2000, because we were actually finishing a Millennium project at work, and we were having a get together, a drink together. And I told my project manager that I'm worried about the rise of Islamism in this. And he said to me, oh, that would never happen here. Right. And okay. I remember the very first time I heard Khomeini's name in Iran, and I didn't know who he was. And I asked people, who is he? And when they told me who he was and what he wanted to do, I said, oh, that will never happen here. It's this sort of like complacency that always rings alarm bells in my head.
Yeah.
When people say it will never happen here. If you say that, you're allowing it to happen here.
Yes.
You mustn't say it can't happen here. You have to say it could happen here, and we're going to stop it before it spreads too far. because if it spreads too far, it really is hard to stop it.
That's really philosophically very deep. When people say it can't happen here, it actually makes it happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm writing that down. So, okay, suggestion. Oh, so do you want to? We've got 8 more minutes. Do you want to tell me more about Israel, or do you want to make suggestions for how to stop it happening here? Or stop it in its tracks, because it is happening here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to like have time to say both of them. Just one more thing I wanted to say about Israel was like, I mean, we were at a restaurant in Jerusalem, and all of a sudden the siren went because there was a Houthi rocket attack. And that was the sort of the thing about life in Israel that I noticed, that, you know, you could be killed any moment. When I was there was also that terrorist attack at the bus stop in Jerusalem where 6 people were killed. You know, at any moment, a terrorist attack, a rocket at you and kill. And for that reason, they seem to have this love of life. You know, they were playing volleyball on the beach from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10:30 at night, and despite what the country was going through, they were trying to live life to the full and celebrate it, because I think they knew anytime, you know, it could all end, so they might as well enjoy it. But also, what was impressive for me was how much Israeli government cared for its citizens. I mean, every level at the hotel had a safe shelter. There were safe shelters everywhere, you know. And yet, you look at Hamas, complete disregard for the lives of its own citizens. All these years, they've built all these tunnels and all. They haven't built one shelter for their citizens, you know. And their excuse is, oh, that's not our job. It should have been the United Nations. How is it the United Nations' job to build shelter for your own citizens? You know, the Israeli government cares for its citizens. This is something that I don't see here. I don't see the government here being very serious about looking after the lives of its own citizens.
No.
And that is the first duty of every government.
Yeah.
In terms of what can be done here, I mean, I think people have got to take the threats seriously. People have got to wake up. They've got to stop this sleepwalking, thinking that, you know, nothing is happening, and, you know, and then pressure their elected representatives, and the next chance that they have, make sure that they choose their elected representatives properly, correctly, by, you know, finding out, you know, how serious they find this threat that's beginning to destroy this country. I mean, look, we have a Home Secretary who's been an activist, right?
They all have. They all
have.
I
mean, these are not people that are like, you know, you elect your representatives because you want them to run the country, because you know, you want them to be able to manage things, you know, to you don't want to elect activists to run a government. I mean, we have a home. What kind of a normal country has a Home Secretary who was involved in a mob that shut down Sainsbury's for 5 hours because they were selling some Israeli products there?
Yeah.
You know, what kind of a normal country has a Home Secretary who, you know, goes around on these, like, you know, pro-Palestine protests and, you know, chants from the river to the sea? It's just incredible. So, you know, be careful about choosing your representatives, because if you choose the wrong representatives, and it worries me that, because, like, I mean, in some sense,
it's the media, isn't it? They're telling people what to choose. I was having a row with, well, not a row, but a heated discussion with somebody just the other night who, a very intelligent man, but Trump was the very devil as far as he was concerned, and he got that from the BBC for sure.
I think people are beginning to realise that what they're being told on the media isn't true. I think that is changing, and I'm sort of like heartened by all these alternative platforms like your channel and my channel, and, you know, other people's. You know, so it's not like the old days where people's only source of information was the mainstream media. So and I'm not too worried about that. It's like the Unite the Kingdom rally, right? I mean, anyone who went to that rally knew that this wasn't 100,000 crowds.
Yeah,
They knew that the media were lying. Anyone who went on that rally knew that this wasn't a far right racist thugs march, and there was probably more diversity than you see on these pro-Palestine or just stop the oil and all these other nonsenses that the establishment gets the activist class to protest about. So they go and tell other people about it. And then next time, more people will come. And that's why, I mean, maybe a few years ago, someone like Tommy Robinson, maybe he could, at best, say, bring about 50,000 people. But he managed to bring 1 million people because people are now seeing for themselves that the media is not telling them the truth. The media is really discrediting themselves. And I don't know when they're going to realize that they're discrediting themselves. Because I see more and more people now turning away from mainstream media. So that's not my main concern. But my main concern is that for 14 years, the British public gave a mandate to the Tory government, and they just didn't do that. They didn't do what the public.
Absolutely
they didn't do what the public asked. I mean, a lot of these things that we're suffering right now under this Labour government, the root cause of it goes to the 14 years of the Tory rule.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in the next election, and in the next election, I mean, this Labour government is the most minority government in British history. It's not because people wanted Labour to rule the country; they just wanted to give the Tories a bloody nose.
Yeah.
And if in the next election people still don't get a government that will carry the mandate, it's really dangerous, because if people lose faith in the ballot box, that's really dangerous, Demi.
Yeah, because what else is
left? I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen because, in the past, okay, so if we had a government that we didn't like, we say, okay, so I'm not happy with the government now, but I'll just wait till the next election and, I'll vote for someone else. If you come to a point that, what's the point? Whoever we vote, none of them are going to listen to what we want. They're all going to keep calling us like far rights and thugs and racist thugs and just label us and not understand what we're saying. Then what's the point? I mean, how can people not see this sense, that obviously unlimited, uncontrolled, unvetted migration doesn't make sense.
No, that's another subject.
These people that hold these posters of refugees welcome, they don't understand that the actual genuine refugees are suffering because of like this, influx of all these people coming from a safe country to the unverified. You're running out of time. Maybe we can talk about that some other time.
I'd like to talk about that because that's actually a huge subject on its own. Potkin, thank you so much for doing this. It is marvelous. I do hope we can have more conversations. You have a lot. You know a lot. You have a lot to tell us.
Thank you for giving me that airtime to say some of that. I really appreciate it, Demi. And
don't forget the links.
Carry on doing your good work.
You too. Okay, I'll speak to you soon again.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.